What's up, Powerlifting Nation? Today we are going to be discussing who is the greatest sub-junior or under 18 powerlifter of all time. Now, Elliot Sykes, after his 766 kilogram total in the 74s, he was seen as the greatest sub-junior of all time by far. However, Jack Reynolds' recent performance at IPF Worlds has made us, or at least me, question whether he is the greatest sub-junior of all time. So let's get into Jack Reynolds' performance. Jack Reynolds is 18 years old. He's in the under 93s. So, in training, Jack Reynolds has shown us crazy strength. 902.5 kg he's shown us in the gym. Bear in mind the world record in the open class, so lifters of all ages, is 918 kilograms, done by Russell Orhe recently. So Jack Reynolds in training has showed us strength which is comparable to kind of Russell Orhe's platform strength. However, Jack Reynolds has had a problem executing in the past. He loses usually about 50 kilograms on his kind of training total in the past, maybe even more. So the question going into this World Championships was, could Jack Reynolds better his execution? Because that's what we want to see from sub-juniors. We want to see an improvement over time of different factors like execution. And I would say that he definitely did improve his execution. One lift that he has struggled with has been his squat, especially. And at this competition, he managed to execute his squats amazingly well. 320.5 kg, moved relatively smooth, which is insane. I remember when I was a sub-junior under 93, I think the world record was around 286 kilograms, and that was back in 2023. So that shows how far ahead or his squat is compared to sub-junior under 93s historically. So yeah, this was crazy. Moving on to bench press, 210.5 kg. His bench press is his specialty. He managed to do this crazy. And then moving on to deadlifts, this is where the execution issues did come in slightly. On his second attempt, 330 kilograms, he missed the lift. On the next attempt, he repeated 330 kilograms, initially didn't get the lift, and then the jury overturned the lift. So this gave Jack Reynolds an 861 kg world record total. By the way, before in the sub-junior under 93s, the world record was 800.5 kilograms. Jack Reynolds increased this total by 60.5 kilograms. Just crazy to break a world record by that much. This total was also crazy because this put him number 22 of all time out of all under 93s. Under 93s of all ages. Jack Reynolds has said that he wants to be a competitive under 93 open lifter. He's planning on skipping the juniors and being a competitive under 93 open lifter by this time 2026 rolls around. And I would say it is possible. Jack Reynolds has shown us that he has strength in the gym. He has raw strength. I wouldn't be surprised if in the gym he totals 925 kilograms in 2026, maybe even more. The question is, will he be able to execute and translate this strength on the platform? It will be difficult, that's all I'm going to say. Like I said, the world record is 918 kilograms by Russell Orhe. Jack Reynolds would really have to improve his execution greatly in order to be able to compete with this kind of total, because a lot of under 93s right now are at around this kind of range. But I think it's possible. He's gaining strength rapidly. So if next year he started being a very competitive open under 93, I think that I wouldn't be surprised. It will just be quite difficult. But definitely by the time 2027 rolls around, this is kind of what I expect from Jack Reynolds. I expect him to be extremely competitive in the under 93 open kg class because he's just so strong at such a young age. But now let's ask ourselves the question, who is the greatest sub-junior of all time? Let's first talk about pound for pound. Now, the official pound for pound formula in the IPF is GL points. So let's start off with GL points. Jack Reynolds, his 861 kg total in the under 93s, according to GL points, just about beat Elliot Sykes, his 766 in the 74s. So arguably pound for pound in the IPF, Jack Reynolds was the greatest sub-junior ever. However, we have another formula in powerlifting, DOTS, which is arguably more popular amongst powerlifters as a whole. And according to DOTS, Elliot Sykes' performance beats Jack Reynolds' performance a lot more clearly than Jack Reynolds beat Elliot Sykes according to GL points. And so, pound for pound, I would argue that Elliot Sykes' 766 kg total was pound for pound slightly better than Jack Reynolds' 861. As their GL points are roughly the same, Elliot wins DOTS quite comfortably. Also, the fact that Elliot managed to do his performance before Jack Reynolds, I would say it slightly gives Elliot the advantage pound for pound. Moving on to the question, how good were their performances compared to other open lifters at the time? Because the whole point of sub-juniors is to see which under-18 powerlifters right now are going to be competitive in the open in years to come. So this is a significant factor. And like I said, Jack Reynolds, number 22 of all time in the under-93s. Compared to Elliot Sykes, he was number 8 of all time at the time in the under 74s. And so Elliot Sykes, you could argue, wins this category comfortably. However, I wouldn't say it's comfortably, just because the under 93 kg class is a lot more competitive. There are a lot more under 93s that compete in the IPF. So it would be much harder for Jack Reynolds to be higher up in the under 93 kg rankings than it is for Elliot Sykes to be higher up in the under 74 rankings. And so I would say it's closer than you would think. However, I would say that Elliot Sykes still takes the win in this category. Also, if we look at dominance in their individual weight classes, I would say that Elliot Sykes takes the win again. When Elliot Sykes was a sub-junior, his 766 kg total, he won with ease. Compared to Jack Reynolds, we're going to talk about this later, but he had a big battle with Chase Gravit to win this world championship. And so dominance as a sub-junior, I would say Elliot Sykes wins once again. And therefore, I would say that Elliot Sykes had the greatest sub-junior performance ever. However, who was the greatest sub-junior of all time in the IPF? That's a different question. Because Elliot Sykes, he won the one world championship in the IPF, and it was a crazy performance. Jack Reynolds, he has done a lot as a sub-junior in the IPF. Back 2 years ago, when he was 15 or 16 in 2023, he was third in the world at IPF Worlds in the under 74 kg class. Moving on to last year, he moved up to the under 83 kg class. Here, he became world champion and broke the world record in the weight class by about 70 kilograms. And then this year, he obviously moved up a weight class one more time and put up a crazy performance, breaking the world record again. And so Jack Reynolds, as a sub-junior in the IPF, he won 3 different total medals in 3 different years, breaking 2 world records in 2 different weight classes. And throughout his sub-junior campaign, he won 3 different medals in 3 different weight classes. I mean, it can't really get much better than that. And so you could argue that as a sub-junior in the IPF, Jack Reynolds had the greatest sub-junior campaign ever in the IPF. Yes, you can argue that if Elliot Sykes had been in the IPF, then he would have been as competitive as Jack Reynolds was throughout the years. However, Jack Reynolds was the one that did that. And so you could argue that Elliot Sykes had the greatest sub-junior performance in the IPF ever, But you could also argue that Jack Reynolds was the greatest sub-junior in the IPF ever. What do you guys think in the comments? But I cannot just talk about Jack Reynolds and about his crazy performance without talking about Chase Gravit. That would just be so unfair. Why? Because Chase Gravit almost won it all. Let's look at his performance. So he started off with a massive 307.5 kg squat. Crazy. And then a 190 kilogram bench press, once again crazy, but his specialty is his deadlift. His final deadlift attempt was a massive 364 kilograms. Bear in mind the open deadlift world record is 373 kilograms, I believe, in the under 93s. Chase Gravit pulled 364 kilograms, almost locked it out. Just about missed it on grip. And if he had got this deadlift, he would have beaten Jack Reynolds. He was this close to arguably being the greatest sub-junior of all time, arguably. And so we can't not talk about Chase Gravit. Also, Chase Gravit is an extremely exciting lifter because he's progressing so quickly. I would say quicker than Jack Reynolds is progressing. Yes, when you have such a big deadlift like Enna in the under 83s, it is difficult to execute such a high-end deadlift. And so it will be difficult for him to lock out a 360 plus deadlift. But I would say it's possible. When Chase Gravit is able to lock out and hold on to a 360 plus deadlift, he is going to be very, very dangerous. Every single meet he's putting on kilograms on his squat and bench press. I would say very soon his subtotal is going to be comparable to Jack Reynolds within the next year or so. Plus, he has the far more dominant deadlift. So Chase Gravit is definitely someone to look out for. I wouldn't be surprised if he starts taking over Jack Reynolds. It would be difficult, but he was this close at the meet. And so the battle between Chase Gravit and Jack Reynolds in the next few years, whether it's in the juniors or in the open, is going to be extremely exciting. I can't wait for when they face off again. But thanks for watching. Tell me what you think. Who is the greatest sub-junior of all time? Comment down below. Who do you think will have the better career between Chase Gravit and Jack Reynolds when it's all said and done? Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.